Posted by you/Tours 2020. Creepiest thing I have ever experienced. If I told you what I saw last night, you would not believe me. Like I can't even wrap my head around it. Scariest shit I've ever experienced. I can't even talk about it without sounding crazy. So here it goes. I went to do laundry around 2 a.m. with my oldest son. After we put the laundry in, we went to a McDonald's drive-thru to get something to drink. The drive-thru was packed with about 5 or 6 cars ahead of us. I noticed none of the cars were moving forward and it had been like 5 minutes already waiting. So I decided to go around the car in front of me to the next drive-thru lane. McDonald's has 2 lanes. As I'm pulling around them, I look to their car to see why they are not moving, and I kid you not, both people, driver and passenger, looked dead. Heads tilted all the way back, eyes shut, not moving, dead. I freaked out and tried to pull out of the drive-thru entirely, going around the other cars just to get out of there, and I kid you not, the next car I passed, all the passengers also looked dead. Heads tilted back, eyes shut. I panicked thinking maybe they were all shot or someone killed them all, so I fucking hit the gas and got the fuck out of there. I couldn't fathom what happened or barely speak. I was hyperventilating, so my son called 911 and told them what happened, and they sent an officer to check. A few minutes later the cop called us back, said everything was fine at McDonald's. Mind you, my son saw it too. We both saw the car in front of us, the people looked dead. This shit was terrifying. It literally looked like one of those rapture movies or end of the world type of shit. Needless to say, I can't wrap my head around what we saw or why. I'm still scared over it. I know I'm not crazy because my son saw it too. But it feels crazy to even say it. Anyways, yeah, scariest shit ever. My friend messaged me and said she thinks we experienced a glitch, and this is so new to me. I had never heard of glitches even being a thing, but I am super freaked out and would love your thoughts because I have severe anxiety and I feel so crazy now. Posted by you/the karma don't matter. I think I just became the background character for another person's glitch. This technically happened last night, but I was just starting a graveyard shift and I'm only now getting it all down. I work at a gas station chain with only numbers in its name. We're just outside of a large chunk of suburbs, none of that middle of nowhere, like we aren't exactly near any other businesses, but we are rarely completely dead for hours at a time. It was just past midnight, and with everything going on in the US right now, not a lot of things other than gas stations and bars are open at night anymore, so it was a slower evening. I was the only one in the store and a car pulled up to one of the 2 double-sided pumps out front. Pretty standard white 4-door. I'm not great with car brands, but it was a little nicer, like upper middle class and probably only a few years old. A woman gets out and starts walking towards our door like she's in a daze. Legit, this woman looked like she saw a ghost. She wanders up, sort of freezes at the door for a second with a 1,000-yard stare before opening it and coming in. She didn't go looking for anything, didn't start shopping, just sort of stood inside for what felt like ages. Again, bars are still open, so I think maybe she's a little drunk or had a rough night or something, so I give the usual welcome to gas station, let me know if you need any help finding anything, and she finally notices me and immediately asks me the weirdest damn question I have ever been asked on the job. You can see me, right? Yeah. Like, what else do you say? She breaks down crying in the middle of my store, so I'm already headed around the corner to see what's up. I have my cell phone out in case I need to call the cops or something for her. I get her to sit down on a nearby pallet of soda and I'm grabbing her a bottle of water, and after she catches her breath a little she tells me I thought I had died. Again, I'm thinking maybe she is on something, but she's a middle-aged woman who looks like a standard local suburban housewife. We're a pretty boring township without your average junkies like you'd find closer to the cities. So she asks if she can call her husband to pick her up and wait with me. She has her own phone and does so, not really telling him anything either, just where she is at and if he can come get her. He says he'll call an Uber and be there as soon as possible. We're waiting. So far nobody else has showed up, so I'm keeping most of my attention on her, and eventually she starts to explain to me I was driving home from dinner with my coworkers, and as I'm driving through nearby intersection I recognized a truck ran a red light and hit me. Now, her car is still at the pump without a scratch on it. She goes on to say she remembers her car being pushed into a pole, going airborne, and then nothing. I tried to calm her down, letting her know that her car is out front and it looks fine. But she insisted that she completely blacked out, woke up in an ambulance for a split second, passed out again, and then woke up again in the driver's seat of her car at the intersection waiting for the light to change, perfectly fine. This whole thing freaked her out so badly that she drove to the nearest anything, us, just so she could get out of the car. Husband eventually showed up to get her. He asked if I had any idea what happened, and even though she sort of explained to me, I just shrugged because no, I had no idea what was happening anymore. She reluctantly got into the passenger seat of the car and he drove them back home. That was hours ago, after which I worked an entire shift at the station trying to wrap my head around what the absolute hell I had just witnessed. Posted by you/Isolene IE. I called my dad in his past about more than 30 years ago. I recently posted about me disappearing into thin air when I was sleeping and my family couldn't find me, and when I woke they swore up and down that they have searched all over for me but weren't able to find me. This is not an update but something that just happened yesterday. 3 days ago I was having conversation with my father and he was telling me about his university life. Basically my dad came from nothing, he had a very difficult upbringing and went to the worst school and high school in our city. When it was time for him to join university, my grandfather passed away leaving my dad to take care for the rest of the family as he was the oldest son. He took a major because of the wrong advices of the people and how he regrets that to this day. The courses were taught in English, which is a second language for us, and how he didn't even know the language. My dad told me that it was the darkest times in his life and he just wanted to run away and was even thinking of taking his own life. Now very recently he got his master's in English literature and he was telling me that he didn't think it would be ever possible for him. My dad just recently finished this degree at an age of 55. The next morning my dad had to drive to this town because his distant relatives live there and they are struggling financially. My dad is very a kind soul and he wanted to help them. The town is 3 hours drive away. He usually takes public transport but didn't because of recent crisis. He drove there and my mom was worried, so we decided we will keep calling him after every hour to check. Well, I decided to call him. Now keep in mind because its highway network signals get very weak. He told me to wait and parked at a nearby restaurant. It was like a checkpoint for trucks. I don't know what came over me but I started crying and went on to tell him how proud I was of him. I just babbled and kept saying that he shouldn't think he is lacking because he is not. He was an amazing father and a great person to look up to. You guys, my dad started crying. He told me that he will talk to me when he returns. Well, he returned and he just hugged me and was telling me that how 30 years ago he was visiting the same town and it was the time when he was at his lowest. He was visiting the same relatives and he was in a bus which stopped at a petrol station. He called his mother and when he picked the phone without even dialing he heard my voice. It was me telling him the exact same thing which I just said yesterday. He said that he didn't even call my grandmother, he just stood there and cried. It gave him strength to keep fighting. He said he just now realized it was me whose voice he heard. My parents are now taking this as sign from God who helped my dad when he thought no one was there for him. Posted by you/for the weird stuff. Where is my kid? I have 4 kids. I know I have 4 kids, but recently I just feel like there should be another one, but it's missing. When we go out, I head count and get flustered because I can't find the extra one. I have to consciously remind myself there are only 4 but my heart just doesn't believe it. Well, I just put it down as one of those weird feelings and push it aside. Then, my parents sent money to my kids. They sent $500. I called them and asked them why they put in so much. They were confused and said that they told me they were sending $100 per kid. I reminded them that I only have 4 kids. They were silent for a moment, then just kind of laughed and said they must be getting old because they were thinking there was 5. Then tonight, my daughter walked into the lounge room. She looked around, said, "I know we're all here but our family feels small." My son agreed. I hadn't said anything to anyone about my feelings lately because they already think I'm ancient and forgetful at 40. Thanks for reading if you've made it this far. Does anyone else ever have these feelings? Posted by you/Noah_Ike. My pen pal wasn't real? A few years ago, I made a pen pal from another state through a website. We talked a lot, with very extensive and specific letters, for about a year and some months. She told me about her childhood, her high school experience and what she was going through at the time. Her family, her house, her city, everything. One day, she tells me that she was going on a vacation, and couldn't send letters, so she sends me her Instagram in case of an emergency if I wanted to talk to her. Honestly, I had tried to find her before on social media but her name and surname were too common. We were very close, and I didn't like talking to my pen pals on social media, but one day I wanted to tell her about an accomplishment I made. I go to the user she sent me, but it didn't seem very active. She had no bio, no PP, and only one photo. I recognize her face because we sent pictures of each other. I open the photo and see it was from 2016 and it had so many comments. Weird, she had almost no followers. I thought maybe this isn't her main account anymore. But then I opened the comments. She was dead. Her comments were family members, friends she talked to me about, They were all giving their condolences and saying how much they missed her. I didn't know what to think, so I try and look up what happened to her. Apparently someone had murdered her in early 2017, the year we started writing to each other. Thinking it was a bad joke, how could it be? Maybe she made it all up? I keep on writing letters as if nothing happened. I asked her specifically about 2017 though, if it was a good year or not. She tells me a lot of things that happened that year, and that she went out with a creepy guy for a while. I don't write to her anymore after that and haven't received any letters from her. But it still haunts me, and I still don't understand what the hell happened there. Update: after everyone told me that I was talking to the murderer, I got very freaked out. That never crossed my mind. I did some research, and found out that they had two suspects, her boyfriend and stepmother, and they both went to jail in 2018. But they released the stepmother a while later and closed the case saying that the boyfriend did it. He got many years, so he must be in prison still, hopefully. His name or face isn't public of course, so I couldn't know for sure if he's free, but he probably isn't. Anyway, someone said it could have been a family member or friend not knowing how to cope, and I think that might be the most logical answer. I really felt like I was talking to her all that time though, but it could be that. I should do something more, try to reach out to someone who knew her, but it low-key scares me. Another clarification: the web page that we met through asks for ID picture and a bunch of other stuff for security measures. It's designed for teenagers and so they don't get catfished. Posted by you/all look like trash. TW, suicide, I was supposed to die. Years ago, I was in the lowest point of my life. I harmed myself and had so many suicidal thoughts. One day I decided to end all of it. I wrote a letter saying goodbye to everyone and listing the names of my loved ones at the end of the note. I put myself in the bathtub and taped the note on my door. I put my favorite songs on so I can at least have a little fun while I die. I made a little drink of poisonous stuff to drink just in case I didn't die. I drank the drink first and paused cause that was literally disgusting, but I had to swallow. I then proceeded to stab myself in the throat 2 times. Can't remember, but I was too weak to stab fast because I was in so much pain. Then I passed out. I didn't die, but instead, I saw my body lifeless, in a camera angle. It was truly disturbing, seeing myself dead and deformed like that. Fluids were coming out my mouth, my eyes were still. Then I woke up, the drink still in my hand. I was confused, disturbed, and terrified. I cannot process what I just saw. I decided not to do it because I can't imagine my parents finding me like that. I'm 4 years clean of self-harm and thoughts. Posted by you/Nestle13. I think I died in early July. Do you guys know the whole theory about how when people die in one timeline, they shift into another? I think that may have happened to me. Back in early July of this year, my family, M45, F54, me:19, B16, S13 were going on a road trip to Montana to visit our grandparents. Prior to the trip, I had a horrible feeling about going. I kept having flashes of car accidents in my head, and I was sure that we were going to get in one if we left. It was so strange, because I have a pretty severe anxiety disorder, but this didn't feel like my anxiety at all, and I never have anxiety about road trips. I love them. So we left Saturday of that week. I had told my parents I had a bad feeling about driving up there, but they dismissed me as being anxious, but I had never felt so certain about something in my life. Getting into that car felt like signing my death sentence. So we get about 6 hours in, and at this point, I start to think I was being ridiculous, and a wave of calmness just washes over me. This is where shit gets strange. My dad passes an underpass and everything just shifts. I feel like I saw everything in slow motion for a whole 4 or so minutes. My parents were joking beforehand, but their faces moved so slowly, and then the light in the car started to shift. This was the scary part because I thought I must have been going insane. For a few seconds, there was a huge illumination of light into our car, and I looked at my family, and could not tell who they were or what they meant to me. And then it's like everything just came back. The light shifted back, and I knew who everyone was, but it felt like something imperceptible had changed. I closed my eyes and tried to make sense of the past few minutes, and when I reached back to remember, I saw blood, our car and another minivan in shambles on the side of the highway right beyond the underpass, and mangled bodies. I remembered sensations I should not have known, what spattered brain matter looks like, the smell of something burning, the way I couldn't breathe. But this never happened? Yet I remember that the car in front of us had switched lanes even though there was a truck in front of us, realized it at the last second, and hit us with a lateral impact. I have no history of psychosis, and I have never been in any sort of car accident. This wasn't PTSD, and I have never had anxiety over being in the car in any sort of way prior to this. And maybe I could have just brushed it off, but I still think about it when I'm driving in my own car. And it's made me a more cautious driver. I don't know what happened, it was just a weird situation, and I remember having the distinct feeling in that moment that I had died in some sense. I am not a spiritually sensitive person by any means, I am a scientist at heart, but this truly was something I cannot explain. And I fully accept that I might be reading too much into this, and for some reason, I imagined an event that never happened, but I thought I would share anyway. Posted by you/me birthday dogs. My whole life is different and no one believes me. I am sorry if this is the wrong place to post this. Mandela effect doesn't allow personal stories, only stuff with proof. This is gonna be long. This Wednesday, February 5th, on the way to work I went to my usual gas station. I go there every day, 5 days a week. I go in and everything is different. All new drink stations have been installed and the food area is completely redone. None of this was different Tuesday morning and I couldn't believe that they'd redone a gas station in one night. I then go outside and see that 2 gas pumps are completely gone and there is mulch bags stacked taking up all the space. None of this was there the day before. I then leave and head to work and somehow turn on the wrong street and get lost. I've been driving these neighborhoods for months, and suddenly I'm lost trying to find my job. I get to work a few minutes later and I'm panicking. I know it's silly, but I've always feared changing timelines. My fiancé and I have a timeline safe word, so we know we are together. I call and ask him and he has no idea what I'm talking about. We just talked about it at the end of January and we've had it established for a while. I've even woken him up at night and asked him after having a nightmare and he's known. But now he has no idea what I'm talking about. Then the girls start coming downstairs. I work in an addictions group home, and one girl keeps saying how confused she is and how nothing makes sense today. Later in the day another kept saying all she wanted to do was cry and she had no idea why. Then while running errands I go down the same street I always do and suddenly there are 4 houses gone and a grove of trees planted. I've never seen them before and really started freaking. They are next to a building my family owned for the last 20 years. I know the whole neighborhood. My final straw was calling my mom today. She said my sister was going out tonight with her friend Jenna. I have known Jenna since 2003. I asked how much longer until Jenna has her baby. My mom goes silent and asks what the heck I'm talking about. She says she's never been pregnant. I look her up online, nothing. I asked my sister just a half hour ago and she laughs in my face and says Jenna is infertile and will never have kids. I literally remember the day my sister told me she was pregnant. She told me to guess who and Jenna was my third guess. What the hell is happening to my life? Posted by you/Huntington44. I've been seeing the same guy at random for over 20 years all over creation. This is a topic that has questioned my sanity and haunted me for years and years. I've been seeing the same man since I was in my late teens. I'm 38 years old now. I started seeing him in random places around the age of 17. I live in a heavily populated area and I have lived all over the tri-state area. I've seen him in parking lots, I've seen him in stores, I've seen him at events, but the craziest one was I saw him at a destination wedding in St. Martin about 10 years ago. I approached him at the wedding and asked him if he has been following me for years because I see him all over the place. As you can imagine, the conversation immediately became one of the awkwardest ones I've ever been a part of. He kind of laughed and shrugged it off, but I could tell he knew he was seeing me all over the place also. There's been spans of over a year to 2 years where I don't see him whatsoever and it seems like it comes in waves. My life has changed considerably, as you can imagine. Since the age of 17 I now have a wife and a child. My most recent sightings of the guy was in a store called Bye Bye Baby. I was buying things for my newborn. Within the same month I saw him in a Home Depot about 30 miles away. Every time this happens he pretends like he doesn't see me, but I can tell he's as sketched out as I am. The last sighting of this guy was a couple months ago in the store for baby stuff and that was the final straw. I'm telling you, if I see this guy again I'm going to get to the bottom of it. I don't even care what it takes. It's something I've pondered over for so long, and like I said, I question my own sanity. I'm also a male, for frame of reference, and the guy that I've been seeing is a lot older than me, but it seems like he hasn't aged a bit, as crazy as that sounds. Like I said, I know the man is real, I've talked to him face to face. But that still doesn't make me question my own sanity. Posted by you/Red Leaders. I died in late 2015. I was given a second chance. I've never used Reddit before, but a friend of mine was talking to me about the glitch in the Matrix subreddit, so I decided to share my story here, since I don't have any explanation for it almost 3 years later. Rewind back to September 2015, I was a freshman who had just entered high school 2 weeks prior. Already school was weighing down on me, and I'd been continuing a habit I had of going on walks to clear my mind. On this day, I'd been walking around a pond near my house. There's a trail that goes around the pond, and then the trail leads up to a set of abandoned train tracks on the other side, which sit about 15 feet above the path and pond below. After walking the circle, I was crossing the train tracks when I decided I wanted some ice cream. The fastest way to get to the ice cream shop was to take the path below the train tracks, but there isn't any way to cross the pond without going all the way back around, and being 14 years old. I decided that I could just jump from the tracks onto the path below and keep walking. Looking down from above, it didn't seem to be that far of a jump, so that's what I did. The next thing I remember after that was being half conscious in an ambulance. Everything was extremely blurry and the paramedics sounded slightly panicked. I wasn't able to move either of my legs, so I think they were both broken. This scene continued on for a few minutes, until we arrived at the hospital and I was wheeled into the emergency room on a stretcher. I only had a few minutes in EMERG before I eventually lost all consciousness, and that was the last thing I saw. After I'd been unconscious for what felt like about an hour, I opened my eyes and I was on the ground. I'd just hit the ground after jumping, but this time I was fully conscious. I hadn't noticed this before I jumped, but there had been a car parked watching me. I think they thought I was attempting suicide, but it probably looked that way, and the people in it had jumped out and called an ambulance for me. The ambulance ride had been the exact same as it was the first time, and I was put into the same emergency room that I had died in before. The only difference between the two events were that I was fully conscious this time, and my injuries were much more minor. I was discharged from the hospital the same night, with only stitches in my lip, a slightly fractured jaw and a mild concussion. For a while after this, I assumed that the first scenario had just been a weirdly coincidental dream that I'd had while I was unconscious, so I didn't consider it anything abnormal. It wasn't until a few weeks after, when my mom told me that the people who had helped me said that I had been conscious the entire time, I hadn't been knocked out after hitting the ground or anything. So, that entire scenario managed to happen in the few seconds it took for me to hit the ground, while I was still conscious. Anyways, I'm not very good at describing things, especially with how blurry this day was now that it was years ago. But, I'm 17 now, and I still have no way to explain what happened that day, other than I died, and was given a second chance.